Hello, Andrew. You'll need to unmute.
Is that better?
Absolutely. Great to meet you.
Excellent. Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
Yes. Been using Zoom 4 years now, and we all have the same problem with unmuting. And there's clearly a deep, deep UX issue in the software if every user has this problem.
Oh, this is one of the first times I've used it with my iPad. I'm not on the computer. So
Oh, okay.
I'm going to use that as my excuse. That's
Are you Andrew Gould or Andrew Gold?
Gould.
Okay, yes, you're British. If it was American, it might likely be Gold.
No, definitely Gould.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself to start, just who you are and what you do?
I can do. First of all, though, I'm going to ruin this slightly. I've got my computer on just over there, and I can hear it making a noise. Can you hear it at all?
Not at all, but if you want to turn it off, no problem, go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's fine. It'll let me cheat if I need anything, any references.
You know
Okay.
what's great? Oh, go.
Oh, no, yes. So what were you going to say?
Apple devices, the voice isolation on the microphones in Apple devices is so good. I have my dog in the room sometimes, and she's like a half Chihuahua, so she'll be barking her head off because somebody's had the temerity to walk past our gate, and nobody can hear her.
Yeah, I've been impressed with the Apple. So I'm not exactly an Apple fanboy, but I mean, I've got the iMac down, not the iMac, the Mac Mini now with their new monitor and everything. It's really impressive.
Yeah. So who are you? What do you do? Tell us a bit.
Okie dokie, right. I'm Andrew Gould. I'm British. I'm a direct response copywriter, and I've worked as a freelance direct response copywriter for the last 14 years. Okay. Do you want me to go into my complete story?
No, we'll dig into that in just a moment. I just wanted to kind of brief, but because the first thing I like to find out about people is when was the first time that you typed how to make money online into Google?
I didn't do that.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
You should try it.
Oh, I've worked in the market. I wouldn't want to search for it. No, no. I discovered copywriting years before I became a copywriter.
Ah.
So for me, I was never looking for kind of general make money things. It was
Mm-hmm.
always, I had this idea of a copywriter, and I thought, hey, that's what I can do. I can go for it. So yeah, I think I always had a predefined path I was walking down.
Mm-hmm. How did you find out it existed? Because it's kind of an obscure thing, or at least it used to be a very obscure thing.
It is. Oh, sorry, that's a long way. Uh, it started. It started back when I got interested in martial arts.
Okay.
And I started buying martial arts magazines. And now, as a rule, these magazines are terrible. They always were. They always will be. They're truly terrible writing. But what fascinated me was the adverts in them. She had these amazing adverts, things like how to kill a man in 3 seconds. Like how to take this common household item and wipe out an SAS squad in 3 seconds, even if you're in a wheelchair. That type of crazy stuff. And yeah, and I was obsessed with those. I'd read those more than any of the articles. I thought this is amazing writing. It's obviously all complete nonsense, but
yes.
I was fascinated by everything. I loved the style, the aggression, everything about it. And then I never really thought much about them other than I found them fascinating. So I went to university, and I was this would be the late 90s at this point. So going to university, I was able to access the internet for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And still being interested in martial arts, I was, of course, Googling. When I wasn't Googling martial arts back then, I was Yahooing or Alta Vistaing martial arts. And, I'd read on forums, join email groups, that type of thing. And eventually somebody said, oh, those Dan Kennedy style ads. And I thought, Dan Kennedy? Oh, that's interesting. I've got a name now. These adverts fascinate me. So let's try searching for Dan Kennedy, see who this guy is. So I searched for Dan Kennedy, and I found out he was this marketing guy. And he had the thing where I could give him my email address, and for 12 weeks, he'd send me a course on how to write these type of adverts. And I wasn't considering it as a career, far from it, but I was fascinated by it. So I thought, hey, he can have my email address. And he did, and he sent me this email course for 12 weeks. And I learned what direct response copywriting was, the basics of using benefits to sell, the headline, all of that. And again, it was fascinating. But kind of once it finished, I didn't really bother looking into it any further. It was just a whim almost. So I was at university studying accounting, and I discovered I hated accounting. Hated it.
Most accountants do.
I couldn't cope with just adding. All you're doing is adding up rows of numbers and taking away a different row of numbers, then making sure these numbers match. And oh, good God, I couldn't do it. So I left. I got my degree, left university, and then I started. Well, basically, I went into a load of entry-level jobs. Really, I stacked shelves. I worked on a till. Worked on a building site. And then after a few years of that, I applied for a sales job selling cameras. And I got it, which was kind of amazing because I've never been the most social of people at all. My social skills are minimal, I think it's safe to say. But I got this sales job. I later found out it was because I was the only person that applied for it. That was a way for my manager to give me confidence when he told me that. But I got the job, and I found out I was good at it because I didn't really like bothering people. I thought, when I look in the shop, I don't want to be bothered by somebody, who's just trying to sell me something I've got no interest in. And so I learned to sell kind of properly, going up, asking people what they wanted, digging deep, and then showing them, this camera will do what you want it to do. And I became a rather good salesman. And, fast forward a few years, I'm probably a decent salesman by that point. And then the 2008 financial crash hits. And combined with more and more people using their phones as cameras, the chain I was working for closed down. So I was out of work. And then I thought back to, hang on, there's this copywriting thing I looked at university. The adverts still fascinate me. And I know the classic definition of copywriting is, of course, salesmanship in print. And I've just spent several years getting pretty good at sales. And as well as that, kind of part of the story I always forget when I tell it, I've also been fairly keen at writing. Because during my time at university, I started a website reviewing movies. So I'd been writing pretty much non-stop throughout my time. So nice. I thought, I've got the sales experience, I've got the writing experience, and I know a little about copywriting. Let's give it a go, because I was only doing entry-level jobs, and I was, I wasn't far off a loser. I was still living at home with my parents. So as a result of that, I didn't have any bills to pay. So, let's give this freelancing thing a go. The worst that happens is I'll waste a year of my life. It's not like I could go any lower, really. But on the upside was enormous. So I gave it a try. And, fast forward 14 years later, and here I am. And it worked out for me.
That's awesome. I love it. It's so funny. It's like almost everyone I know who does well in this business, they come to copywriting in a roundabout way. And almost always they have some experience of doing some kind of face-to-face or person-to-person sales beforehand. It's like a really good starting point.
It is. I mean, something I've noticed with a lot of the people that send me copy to look at, or I can tell who the non-salesmen are, because they're almost scared to sell. They like the idea of, we're using a story, we're using this, and it's very waffly, the copy is. It never, gets to the point. Here's what we've got for you. Here's what it's going to do for you. So, yes, being in sales beforehand, it really is a huge advantage.
Yes. And you said you're not the most social of people. And it's funny because you and me met on Twitter, and I made some comment one day, I remember, about people shouldn't hide behind like avatars and other kinds of like fake pictures of who they are. And at that point, you had a kind of cartoon avatar that did look like you, but it wasn't. It was a cartoon. And then soon after that, you started doing video content. And like that seems to have actually been really good for you, like that it's generated tons of followers and people are engaging with your videos, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, the Twitter thing was kind of a side hustle. I'm not sure I like the term, but I was just looking to kind of almost wind down my copywriting career, maybe even retire. And then I found Twitter. I think it was a friend who wanted me to look at some pictures on there, and I needed to get an account. I started an account, and then I stumbled kind of across this side of money Twitter, and I saw there were all these people sharing advice. And at first, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," but I can't do it. You know, these people, they're charismatic, they're clever, they're cool, and I'm none of those things. So I thought, this is not for me. But then I noticed there was a few smaller accounts who were just sharing, pure value, actionable advice. And I thought, hang on, I can do that. I'm not Mr. Personality, but I'm Mr. Nerd. I've got all the tips in the world. And I saw most of these accounts had got a few thousand followers. And I thought, it's worth a go. Get a few thousand followers, build a name for myself, see what I can do. And so I just threw it together as quickly as possible. I think I literally just typed into like avatar creator into Google, made an image to look roughly like me, threw it online, did my own banner in Canva. The first banner I did was so terrible. Even after I'd only got a couple of hundred followers, someone DM'd me to say, "I'll make you a new one for free. You can't use that." So that was pretty good. And it turned out that a lot of people liked my advice. And, I went from a few hundred followers to a few thousand to, now I'm at like 32,000 followers. And it's crazy.
I didn't know it's so big. Wow, it's really good.
Yeah, I just tweet out a few bits of advice a day, and people, they normally in real life they're crossing over the road to avoid me. But it seems on Twitter they're actually interested in hearing from me.
But you say you've got no personality, but you do have a personality, because I've read your stuff on Twitter, and it's fun and it's engaging and people love it. So you must have some kind of a personality, or people wouldn't be paying you any attention.
Yeah, obviously I'm being a bit harsh on myself just for, playing it up a little bit. But yeah, most of my content, I try to get to the point as quickly as can, remove all the fluff, deliver the value. I think that's what people like. And then, like you said, I started doing the video recently, and that's helped because I think people can then start to maybe get to know me a bit better. They can see I tend to tell a lot of jokes. As soon as I get comfortable with someone, I'm firing off jokes, straight away, as you might have noticed now. And yeah, I think just revealing who you are, it helps you make a better connection with the audience. So I was terrified, that I look like this, and it's so many of the money Twitter, they seem to be really good looking men in their 20s.
Yeah, but they're all young lads. Like they're all just 20 to 25.
Yeah, I looked like this when I was 25. It was just a tragedy. Yeah.
But like the thing is, Andrew, as well, is like that there's a lot of the people on Twitter are like, there's some really good and interesting people who are doing dynamic stuff there, like guys like Daniel Fazio and Nick Verge and Sam Ocean and guys like that. But they're all guys in their 20s. But what I do see is that, like, for the most part, most people on Twitter are like, who are copywriting or marketing people, they're quite a way behind in terms of understanding and sophistication to people who've really been in direct response for a long time. And there aren't that many people active on Twitter who've been marketers, copywriters for many years like you have. So there's not that many kind of more experienced voices in there, and you've kind of grabbed a niche for yourself.
Yeah, that was it. Like I said, when I first kind of saw this side of Twitter, I probably spent about a year just watching it. So, I saw who was posting what, and I could see there was a gap for kind of a veteran copywriter who was just going to come in and provide value, because, most of the people who were providing value were beginners. So it was kind of beginners teaching beginners.
Yeah.
And I thought, I think I can step in and become an authority. And there wasn't really anyone at that time doing that. And I did it. I think I got the timing just right.
How long have you been on there for?
I started October 2021, so just over 2 years now.
Wow, it is like to build up 30,000 plus followers. And I know there are people with millions, but most people never get beyond a couple of hundred followers. Like they never get beyond 100-200 followers. So to build up that much, and do you find, is it actually a source of business for you now? Is it a hobby? Have you started selling your own products? What are you doing?
I suppose it is really a hobby. In fact, I'm not being paid for it. No, my idea when I started the account was build an audience and then sell them consulting, critiquing, coaching, and maybe info products down the line. But kind of me being me, I'm still on the audience building bit yet. I've not really got to the monetization bit yet,
Oh,
because what I found is I can make probably quite a lot more money doing copywriting as opposed to teaching copywriting.
mm-hmm.
I think that's something people should probably pay more attention to on Twitter. You know, if somebody's teaching something and they seem to be on there all the time, they're running workshops constantly, they're in a community. I mean, are they actually doing what they're teaching? Or if they watched a couple of YouTube videos and they're sharing that?
You know, it's funny. It's like I think a lot of people are less experienced when they're teaching than they say there are. There are some people out there who are definitely have a lot of experience, like guys that maybe on Twitter. I see Stefan Georgia is quite active. He's been a teacher for years, but also still very active as a marketer. And there's some older guys like Doug Deanna as well. But for the most part, yeah, I think it is, and it's that kind of marketing principle, or the kind of, I guess, I don't know, Brunson says it like, just teach the person 3 steps behind you. And a lot of that goes on, which is fine. And I don't think there's anything wrong with this. But it probably only works just enough to get somebody started, because past a certain point, there's so much tactical advice, there's so much conflicting advice, and all of it is right and all of it is wrong, but everything depends on context. And you really just need to have one good voice helping you out at some point to really step up and get better.
Yeah, yeah, I think I've tweeted about this before, because I think I'd rather somebody not follow me and follow just one person and take their advice than risk following all these people. For example, you follow Dan Kennedy, one of the most influential copywriters, easily the person who's influenced me the most. He'll tell you whenever you write a headline, he wants a big benefit in it. That's what it all is, the big benefit. So you think, yes, that's it. And then you discover somebody else who says, oh, you want the problem in your headline. And now, as a beginner, it's like, what do I do? Who's right? And of course, you can find winning headlines with benefits in, winning headlines with problems in.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I've only just realised all this arm movement I'm doing, you can't see it because the camera's not.
You got to get the jazz hands up, yes, Andrew.
Come I know. So yeah, that is important. It's always got to have one person as the North Star who you kind of follow. And that's probably why I need to monetize, so I can try and, I don't want to sound arrogant, so I can kind of be that person for people.
Yeah, no, there's nothing arrogant about it. If you've got the experience and you've got the results, it's perfectly legitimate to teach. And the thing as well is, if you're in this business of teaching and you want to stand out from the crowd, people have to be contrarian. So, Kennedy says one thing, other people say the problem, somebody else says you have to got to sell the outcome, like the future state. You've got a future pace in your headline, and again, they're all correct. But the question is, when and how do you know when to use which? And that's only the thing that really only comes from experience and doing real commercial work where there's actually some real money at stake. And it's going in front of a real live audience, and you've got to find out one way or another if what you've written makes sense or works.
Yeah, that's a great point. As well as I think a lot of people on Twitter are kind of, it's not even Twitter anymore, I keep saying Twitter, it's X. A lot of people on X, of course, are just selling to other people on X. And not only that, they're selling to people that know them, like them, trust them, and have already bought into the idea of everything they're doing, which means the sale is very easy.
Yes.
And these people get those easy sales, and then they think, oh, I know what I'm doing now. And then you try and translate that out to a different audience, to cold traffic, and suddenly it's a completely different game now.
Yes, I mean, on what I work on with my clients at the moment, like we're working on a VSL and we're working on a webinar, and I see like the numbers, it's hard going. We're like, at the moment we're testing about 10 or 15 different ad variations, trying to get something that will convert over 1%. And I know from talking to friends who are more experienced than me, we may test over 100 ads before we find the one. There's a webinar project I'm working on where they've had one control ad for more than 2 years now. They've tested well over maybe hundreds of ads at this point against it. They still can't beat us. And the crazy thing is, it still keeps producing. But it gets to a point where nobody really knows what to do anymore. It's just a matter of, we got to keep trying new stuff until something wins.
Yeah, that's something that's overlooked. I can't remember. I think it was a post I read recently from it might have been from Stephen George or someone like that, who said that I think that we don't really know what works. It's to a degree, it's all guesswork. Obviously we know the structures that work. We know what type of promises work, but we don't know what specific promise would work for certain people. We don't know, would a story work better here? Would focusing on the problem work here? It is. You can only just keep testing and stuff. And as well as that, the other thing you'll find out is the more confident you get that something's going to win, the more likely it is going to lose. So
yes. There's also this timing thing as well, where the same headline or the same appeal on a different day or a different time of the year may get a wildly different result. And so there's just so much randomness and so much things that are unpredictable and to some extent unknowable, that all you can really do is just get in there and keep on trying new stuff and kind of put some boundaries on yourself. Okay, stuff in sort of this Overton window works for me in the circumstance that I'm working in right now, but then you may go and work on a different project that's selling into a different market with a different bunch of people, and you're back to square one. You've got to figure it all out again.
Yeah, I mean, even within markets, it varies massively. If you're selling to the make money market, it's not just one homogenous block of people. You've got people who are complete beginners. You've got people who have been around for a while and succeeded. You've got people who've been around for a while and not succeeded. You've got all sorts of people. It's like, I know, when I build my audience, it'll attract a different type of people than even other copywriters will, simply because I'm attracting a different type of person. So again, it's a different audience, different appeals will sell to them.
And are you still active working with clients and working actually as a commercial copywriter these days?
Yes, the aim was for me not to, but one, I realised I should probably keep it coming as a form of income. I mean, two, it kind of helps me stay up to date with what's working in the market at the moment. And there's not really a third reason. Yeah, money and staying
there has to be three. There should always be three of everything.
Yeah. So yeah, the third is even more money.
Okay. But if Twitter hasn't actually been a client source for you, so what avenues do you go down to drive business and bring in business for yourself?
At the moment, I've not needed to for a good few years. Most of my work is repeat clients and referrals, because I'm working as kind of as a beat the control copywriter, essentially, for long form copy, VSLs, that type of work.
Explain to people who don't know what that is, please.
Okay, so a beat the control copy. Let's start with the obvious word, control. A control means an advert that's currently working for a company. So that's what you call a control. And then a lot of companies, they want to improve that. So they'll get somebody to improve that. They'll write what they call a test. And then they will test that test against the control to see if it can do better. And a lot of these places, they have in-house writers that they'll use. But there's a lot of them will appeal. They'll go further outside that. They want to bring in a specialist like me, who can maybe go to a slightly higher level than their in-house guys can, to have a crack at it. And as well as that, there's smaller companies who don't have any in-house people at all and simply purely rely on people like me.
So if you're hired for a beat the control assignment, you're going in to actually try and improve the conversion percentage of a promotion that's already existing. So it's already a winner, but they want to make it a double plus winner, right?
That's it, yeah. So, they'll show me what the copy is. They're basically asking if I think I can rebeat it. And I'll have a look through that. I typically have a look through, what have they tried against it that's not worked to beat it already. And, I'll have a look, what else is there in the market? And anything like that. And if I think I can beat it, I'll take the job on and have a crack at it. And the good thing is, unless you're at the very top of the industry, unless you're working at the very elite end, most adverts are fairly easy to beat. That's probably going to sound complacent, especially if you've just said you've been testing 100. You can easily test 100 plus ads. But yeah, when you're working with firms that aren't the biggest, they almost always, make the same sort of mistakes.
So what are those common mistakes? Let's do the top three common mistakes that you see. Right. There has to be three of everything.
Okay. Top three. There's not enough not personalization. It's not focused enough on the audience. My power of words, of course, abandoned me now. So let's say if you're selling something to, say, women over 40 who want to lose weight,
mm-hmm.
a lot of times they won't emphasize enough that it's for women over 40 who want to lose weight. Whereas that should be, people are much more likely to buy something when they know it's specifically for them. So, one of the first things I do to any advert is, can we make it clearer who it's for? And that can be as simple as just saying it somewhere in the headline. And as well as that, it's like any sort of testimonial you get or case study, always make sure it's from somebody who's like your target audience. For example, let's say you're selling a skin cream in Africa. Don't use a bunch of white people in your testimonials. They might be great and everything, but they won't resonate with your target audience. So yes, focus on your target audience as much as possible. So that would be the first issue I see. And the second issue, not enough proof. You need, overwhelming proof and credibility elements. A lot of times you can see a sales piece and it's pretty good, but all they've got, say, a handful of testimonials. And again, if you're selling to a warm audience who already know you, trust you, like you, that might be enough. It's just a little bit of confirmation that what you've got works. But if you're trying to sell it to a mass audience, to cold audience, then no, you need to dig a lot deeper than that. You need to have a lot more proof. If you say this wallet's waterproof, for example, you can't just put a testimonial underneath like John Smith says, yes, this wallet is waterproof. That's not good enough. You need to explain, why is it waterproof? What makes it waterproof? Can we have a demonstration of it being waterproof? So yes, proof would be the biggest number two. The second biggest element I see done badly. And then the third's a common one I see, especially with newer copywriters, and that's not enough benefits, not enough focus on the benefits, and the benefits are hidden down in the sales page. For example, there's so much copy I read, and maybe there's a benefit in the headline, but then beyond that, I'm reading through a long, first few hundred words, and I don't know what's in it for me. I'm reading a story. I don't know what's in it for me. And here's the product. And they're only talking about the product in matter-of-fact terms. I still don't really know what it's going to do for me. So, yes, one of the first things I'll do, that usually the very first thing I'll do when I start to write for a new project is I'll get whatever product's being sold or service, and then I'll list every single feature it has. And I really do mean every single feature it has. So if it's a book, I want to know how many pages is it written on? Does it have a table of contents? If it's an ebook, can I click that table of contents? If it's not an ebook, if it's a fancy book, what paper is it made on, printed on? Anything like that, go overboard. And then once I've listed out all those features, I'm going to turn them into as many benefits as I possibly can. And then when I've got that huge list of benefits, then that's generally the raw material for the copy I'm going to write. And so, yes, that's the third point I'll make. So the first point for the beating an ad is making sure it's focused on the target audience as much as possible. Second point is get as much proof as possible. And third point, go benefit heavy. Write as many benefits out as you possibly can when you're starting with. You might not use them all. It doesn't matter, because you'll often find they can be used elsewhere. Maybe in emails, if you're doing a webinar, a VSL, you've only got plenty of other options to use them.
That's awesome. Thank you, Andrew. And it's true, actually. I was just thinking when you were talking about hiding the benefits down the page, and somebody who doesn't do that, who's is Stefan Georgia. Whenever I read some of his copy, he hammers, like his lead is just benefits. Like he really hammers benefits, future pacing, and anticipation immediately from the first couple of lines onwards. And before he ever tells you anything about the product itself or what it does or discovery story, he goes hard on that. So you're anticipating. So you actually want to read the rest of it and find out where the story is going to go.
That's it. I mean, the best description of that lead, the first couple of 100 words I've heard, is that the lead should be like a teaser trailer for a movie. It should get you excited to read the rest of it.
Yes, I love it. That's a really
because
good that's a really good analogy.
thank you. Yeah, because I mean, the classic lead, kind of the one popularized by Gary Halbert, is obviously the if-then lead. You know, if you want to make $1 million in the next 30 days, then read every single word of this letter. A lot of people
Yes.
kind of they look down the nose at that, but that to me is still my go-to lead because it starts with the benefit. It's right there.
The best cold traffic copywriter I know, who I don't want to say his name because he likes to keep a low profile. He uses that again and again and again. He just the Gary Halbert lead again and again and again. And man, he makes a hell of a lot of money. Like he makes a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, it really is. Like, yeah, it's one of those things. I've had people explain to me it's too basic, it's too this, it's too that. But no, it cuts to the chase and you can expand on it underneath. That doesn't have to be a complete lead. You know, you've got options. Once you've
Yes.
written that lead, you can go into your story if you want, or you can keep adding in various things. It's such a versatile lead that I would recommend everybody becomes an expert at the if-then lead. And as well as that, just the if-then structure is powerful because you can then even use it in your close. So, if you want to make that $1 million in 30 days, then click the big blue button below and get started today. Yeah,
Yes. It's internally consistent, the logic of that statement, but it doesn't actually bear any relation to anything outside itself. It's just telling you, if you wanted to have this, do this. And there is a certain number of people who will just not even interrogate that statement and click the bloody button. And ideally, that's what you want. When people say it's too basic, this is an issue as well with like why like listening to people and especially people maybe who are less experienced and just talking with other people can actually hold you back from getting anywhere. Because the thing is that copywriters might think it's too basic because they're reading copy all day long or they've been doing it for some period of time. But the reality is it's not too basic to the person who's reading it. I mean, most people have no idea that copywriting even exists. I mean, from more of my life than the period I've been, for most of my life, like probably about 2/3 of my life, I didn't even know this thing existed, and most people have no clue. So it's not too basic for them. They have no idea. It's just some words on a page, and if it works, it works.
Yeah, that's it. It's you hear so many people, the word free doesn't work anymore. It's everywhere. No, it's everywhere for you because you've been studying the field for 2 years and you've read it 20 times a day for 3 years. It's not new. It's not tied out for the prospect at all, especially if it's something they genuinely want. So that is the danger. And plus, I think when people start talking about more advanced techniques, it excites the beginner because they sound better than the basic techniques. For example, I had a gentleman recently. He sent me it was a sales letter, something asking me my thoughts on it. I told him, you've not got any benefits in it. There's not a single benefit anywhere in the sales letter. And he replied, he told me that that's because he was targeting 2 levels of awareness. And exactly, yeah, that just blew my mind. I'm like, you shouldn't be worrying about awareness levels. What are you talking about? You've listened to some of the more advanced copywriters talking about advanced theory, and it's left him completely confused.
Yeah, I mean, it takes. Look, I've been doing this 4 years now, and I still feel like really I'm still kind of like working with the basics. And I talk to people who have been doing this. I talked to a guy 2 weeks ago who was doing this 30 years. He's like, basics, the basics, just keep focused on getting better at the basics. Like everything comes from that. I mean, he walked me through some of the things he does for headlines, and like every single formulation he used for how to rewrite a headline. We talked about how would he beat a control headline, and we did actually an exercise together. And every single one was a basic headline formulation that I'd seen many, many times before. But what he did was he's like, okay, this headline formulation is for this particular purpose, and here's what we do with it. And then he showed me how to do it 5 different ways with 5 different formulations, all of which I'd seen before. But he explained the reasoning and the logic behind them. And like this dude's been, making millions for his clients for 30 plus years. And he's still focused on just relentless high execution of refining the basics. And it seems like all the best people are that way.
Yeah, yeah, that's all it comes down to. I mean, it's like if you look at, say, boxers, look at a professional boxing match between the greatest boxers in the world, you're going to see a lot of jabs, a lot of crosses, a lot of hooks, and some uppercuts. And they're the four most basic punches. They're the four best punches anyone starts learning. You know, you can throw in a lot of other stuff, but boy, it's always on then. And that's exactly the same with copywriting. There are, there's a million techniques. We could have done this on me sharing technique after technique after technique, but I wouldn't want to. I'd want to be boring, go back to the basics. It's like, let's talk about benefits. Let's talk about proof. Let's talk about getting specific. How do you write that lead? Like you said with your previous gentleman, let's focus on the headline. Let's stick with what we know and get it really good. Because a lot of the copywriting, it's not about what formula you use, what structure you use. What you're really doing is you're reflecting back what your prospect's beliefs onto him. So if your prospect wants, well, man, look, my mind goes blank as soon as I have to think of an example. Let's say your prospect wants a phone that's unbreakable. You can drop it, you can do this. Then often I'm just saying, unbreakable phone. In headline, you're immediately grabbing their attention.
Yes,
I don't need to think about anything advanced.
At that, all you have to do then is actually prove that claim through some form of demonstration. But on the subject of proof, because there's somebody I know who works in an area where he can't use proof because there is no proof, because all the claims his niche makes is unfalsifiable, i.e. it's a spiritual type of niche. So spiritual type niches have, the claims are unfalsifiable, so there's no possibility of proof. And religions have this same problem, the unfalsifiable claims, no possibility of hard proof of any of the claims. What do you do in that instance?
Okay, well, what I think is you've still got different forms of proof. I know what you've just said. I'm just contradicting you. It's like the first kind of level of proof I will get people to write isn't necessarily something like testimonials. It's simply being honest, being truthful. And now I know you can claim, well, they could be lying, whatever, but they've got to genuinely believe it, so it's the truth that they're writing. Then the next thing they've got to be is confident, because confidence is a massive proof element. Again, you look on X, how many people have sold things and got clients purely because they're confident? It's a huge selling point. And then kind of the next element I like to use as proof when you can't use proof is specificity. Because I think a lot of people think being specific is just about adding numbers to something, So instead of saying lose weight, say lose 7 pounds in 7 days. Then it's like, that's not really, that's only one tiny part. The real thing of specifics is you're adding details to make your copy more believable. So, for example, I could say, I had a visitation from the Holy Ghost and he told me this, or I was lying in bed at night, I've gone through the lowest period of my life. I was hooked on drugs, I was drinking regularly, I was beating my wife, all that. And then this, and I passed out upstairs as I normally do. But then as I came to, I saw a shining light and, an angelic figure appeared and he spoke to me. He said, Andrew, of course, I don't want to go on any more with this example. It's already gone pretty downhill. But, offering that kind of detail makes it much more believable. So, yeah. And then the fourth level, or the next level of proof I'd give then is something called reason why copy. And this is something I don't see talked about often enough with modern copywriters. And yet, reason why might even be the foundation of direct response copywriting. It's simply explaining why someone should believe what you're saying. And you've got a lot of leeway with that. So even if you haven't got any proof elements, you can still, explain why you should believe it. You should believe this because it said so in the Bible, because 17 historians have said it's true, because thousands of people all over the world have had similar experiences, because it's changed my life and it can change yours. Strictly speaking, there's no proof element there, but the reason why copy makes it much more believable.
Yes, it's that word because it's kind of a shortcut. It's like linking two things together that may not necessarily have a true logical or rational connection.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yes, some of them, maybe the more black hat copywriters will abuse that to link anything together. I mean, an example one of my mentors gave, well, Dan Kennedy, he said, sharks don't get cancer. So if you inject like these shark pills, you won't get cancer.
That's right. That was that thing that was like one of those popular like supplement fads in the 90s or early 2000s, wasn't it? People were buying shark cartilage supplements.
Yeah. I mean,
sharks don't get cancer.
Exactly. There's no truth to any of that. It's all total nonsense. Yet just that linking statement, because it makes it so viable. And of course, it helps when you're selling to people who are desperate.
Yes, there's that too. Which is a road I don't want to go down in this conversation because, I agree it's not good, but yeah, I've gone down that road in too many conversations before. So I think that's a horse I've already flogged well past the point of death. But this is great. And the reason why I asked you about proof, I was hoping you would do this, is that proof in marketing and proof for copywriters doesn't mean the same thing as proof in a court of law means, because proof is kind of like different literary techniques or rhetorical techniques to create the perception that something has been proven, even if there is no physical evidence for its truth.
Yeah, definitely. It's not. We're not doing a mathematical proof here or anything. We're not trying to get a murderer off or whatever. I mean, thankfully, like lawyers are some of the few people below us as copywriters. So
it's in many ways quite a similar profession to lawyering in the sense that you have to use rhetoric to carry the day in a situation where the truth of the matter is often somewhat obscure.
Yeah, it is. It's a very similar thing because, again, I think almost everything I've sold, but when I say everything I've sold, I know people who've got amazing results with it, whatever it is, but I also know some people who've failed completely with it. So like I said, very few things are black and white. It's like, again, you look at things, something like getting clients, then some people will tell you cold email is the way to go. I send 100 cold emails, get 5 clients. Other people will be like, well, I've sent 1,000 cold emails and I've just got told to F off,
Yes.
So yeah, there's a large degree of subjectivity. And yeah,
with you. Go on, finish your thought.
I've kind of lost my train of thought then. There's something I will kind of briefly go back to. You said that copywriting does have a lot of common with lawyering. Lawyering?
Lawyering,
yeah, does have a lot of common with lawyering. And there are a couple of good legal books you can buy that can help you copywriting. I mean, you've probably heard of Jerry Spence or Jerry Spencer's book?
Jerry Spence, yeah, I've heard of him several times. I've been meaning to buy one of his books, actually. People say his stuff is excellent.
It is. He's got a book that I can't remember the name of, but if you Google his name, then yes, his stuff. And there's another gentleman. This time I know the title of the book, but I can't remember the author. It's a book called Kick-Ass Closings.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Okay, the closing is it's where basically when the lawyers have to sum up their case. So they have to put forward their strongest argument as to why, either the person's guilty or innocent. And this person wrote a book all about the best closings. And so that's a good read for copywriters.
Just coming back to something earlier on, you said you do beat the control, and I just wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit more. So how do they actually work when you come in? Are those things where is it like a bounty hunting type of situation where maybe you get some sort of a fee to actually do the work, and then there's a bounty put on if you were a winner, or how does that work?
That makes it sound much cooler than it is. Yeah, bounty hunts. Yes, you typically still get paid an upfront fee because the people behind it, they know the skill involved in it, and they also know that even for the big name copywriters, the success rate is about 1 in 3 hit rate. Yes. So they already acknowledge that you probably won't beat their control. And so you typically get paid an upfront fee. And exactly what that fee is, it will depend on the market you're writing for, who you're writing for, and who you are. For example, most of the good ones, you're going to be starting at about, say, 10,000 US dollars, and it can go up to, I mean, I know someone like Stephen George gets paid $50,000. I mean, my fee is $35,000 to have a go at beating a control. And there's the odd person who can get paid a ridiculous amount more, but that's very, very rare. And then, again, depending on the market, the product and all that, you can then also get paid royalties. And the royalties are what make copywriters rich. When you hear a copywriter's made millions, it's through royalties.
Yes.
And
on that subject, there must be a bit of a lag here. I'd want to just to dig in on the subject of royalties, because it's kind of a contentious subject, and even people like Stefan, again, to use an example, has sort of spoken about he doesn't generally go for royalty projects, and some other people, and particularly of a past generation of copywriters were very strong on getting them, and then guys like Dan Ferrari talks very positively about all the things that royalties have done for him in his career. But I think the issue with the royalties is not so much whether they work or not. They do, but it's about who are you doing business with, and is it going to basically the quality of the relationship and the trust you build. So would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can do. I think the thing with royalties is most businesses in the world aren't set up to pay them, and probably aren't interested in paying you a percentage of their profits.
Yes.
And often, a lot of times, even when businesses say they are, and they will, you're never going to see a penny of that. Because some of the best advice I got was from a well-known copywriter called John Carlton,
yes,
who basically told me that the money you see up front, you should almost act like as if that's the only money you're ever going to get from the client. So don't go, doing something stupid. You get $5,000 up front and you blow it all because you're going to get $10,000 later. That $10,000 might never turn up once you've handed the work over. But yes, there are plenty of companies who are set up specifically to pay royalties, and it's typically the info product market. And then you've got, dating, health, finance, that type of thing. They are set up to pay royalties. Or survival. Now, the survivalist market's become huge over the last few years. And you'll typically get, it can be anywhere from 1% to 5% of the net sales you'll get, which is called sales minus refunds. And you'll get that. So if you're working for somebody big who's selling millions of dollars of product, you can get a lot of money out of that. And generally, they want to keep the relationship going with you because, again, they're selling info products. They've got very high margins. That's 3% they're paying you. They'd prefer to keep it, but they know that you'll work for them again, and you can help generate them even more money if they keep paying you.
Yes, I think a lot of copywriters don't even realize the differentials between even the very well-paid ones, between what they get and what the actual product or the promotion makes for the offer owner. And I mean, the people I know who do make and sell their own products, like it's just a different league. They make so much more if they are successful. Obviously, there's a lot more complication. It's harder to do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, when I was starting, a lot of people would ask, why don't you sell your own products if you're so great at copywriting? And for me, the answer was always, well, I'm great at copywriting. I'm not great at creating a product, the operations side, the planning, the delivery, handling all the other stuff. That seems like too much of a hassle for me. So you've got much more upside, but you've also got all that downside. It's like, any job I've done, I can walk away from if I'm not committed to. It's not like I want to keep delivering something.
Yes. It also depends on the person. I had a friend, he actually posted about it on Facebook today. We had a conversation recently where he's really, really good at the creative side of marketing, about creating new offers, putting promotions together, creating all the different marketing assets. But when he decided to run his own agency, the longer he did it, the further away he got from that, to where he was just managing his team all the time. And he realized that, as much as he still had some creative input, he wasn't doing the work he was great at anymore. And he got to the point where he was doing work that he was okay at, but it wasn't really what he got into the business to do. And he, in the end, decided, actually, you know what? I became an agency owner, and then it's taken me away from the work I really love and the work that I've been most successful at. So I'm going to go back to doing that now.
Yeah, I think I've heard it called the Peter principle, as in you always get promoted above your level of competence. You're good at something, so you get promoted, so you're no longer doing it.
Yes, that seems to happen to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people do that to themselves as well, even if they're entrepreneurial. They do this thing that makes them successful. And then when they get success, they decide to delegate that to somebody else. And suddenly things don't work as well as they used to. Because that's what a boss does.
Yeah, that's why kind of I've never been interested in anything other than a freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing this. I enjoy it. I wouldn't want to move up to where I suddenly have to manage somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably have them, I'd either be too nice and they'd kill the business, or I'd be too harsh and they'd be gone in a week. I'm not, I think my standards would be too high, or it just wouldn't work. Yeah, and it's why, it's like I've been trying to offer a coaching program for about a year and a half now, and I've still never got beyond an outline in a Google Doc because I don't want to type this out. I don't want to. And then you get a good client, and yeah, I mean, I recently did some great work for a survivalist company, and they were paying me 10% royalties. And
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the launch did $6 million so far.
Amazing.
And it's one of those things where, do I really want to be doing this teaching thing? I can just stay in my comfort zone.
Yes, well, look, I've seen people it go both ways. I've seen people do coaching programs and make millions from it, but then at a certain point, it seems like that the product suffers or the quality of the teaching suffers. The people who I gotten the most out of teaching with have been people who kind of maybe they're not teaching particularly for the money. They've got money from other sources, and they're just doing it because they love it, and it's a little bit of extra income on the side. But I don't know. There is something about the person who is still active in what they're teaching, an active practitioner of what they teach, being the best kind of teacher. I think people go all in on teaching and stop being practitioners, quickly kind of lose their edge.
Yeah, that's definitely what I don't want to do. I was planning on making it as affordable as possible. Anything I did like that, because I want to get the level of the craft up. I want to help people out. I don't want to, let's focus on the basics. Let's get people good.
Yes. What do you like to write for? What type of stuff are you primarily interested in? Is it still stuff that's kind of very action oriented, like the martial arts stuff and the survival stuff?
Yes. I've written from self-defense offers, or many type of martial arts, combatives offers, which is kind of self-offense. I've done health. I've done a lot of things like camping, woodwork, that type of thing. There's a lot of those kind of hobbyist niches that people don't think of, but there's a lot of money in them.
How do you find your way into these kind of obscure niches? If for example, like woodworking, I know there's one big woodworking info product out there, which is Ted's Woodworking on ClickBank, which is like it's some, you look at the sales page and you think nothing of it, but as far as I understand it, that guy is making more than $10 million a year out of it.
Yeah, he's making millions of dollars a year from it. There might be millions of dollars a month from that, but there's a few competitors that are doing millions of dollars a year. Yes, there's lots of these, and the chances are you kind of find your way into them. It's not, oh man, it's like I didn't go out and think, oh, I want to write for a woodworking offer. And let's face it, I don't think anybody does at all. But through various other things, it's like I was referred, you get referrals to people. You start to hear things about what works, what's working and what's not working. And you start to find these smaller little markets that can be gold mines, especially because often there's only one or two people behind them. Because a lot of the bigger niches, they can go out their way to make it look like there's one person behind it, but there's not. There's a huge team behind it. Sorry, I got in trouble for doing a podcast before and listing the back end of a famous internet marketer's offer. So I'm not going to struggle into that today. But yeah, there's some very big names. You might think of one person, but they have an office of 20, 30, 40 people.
Well, I can say one. There's a great example, which is V-Shred, because V-Shred in the fitness space, the face of it is a guy called Vince, and he's a very handsome looking dude in his 20s who's in great shape, and he's a real he's a real big alpha male Chad type of dude. And he's very charismatic on camera and talks a load of absolute nonsense about fitness. And if you go and type V-Shred into Reddit, there's so much hate for this guy. But like almost nobody realizes, they all think he's just like a bad actor, in the fitness
Yeah.
space, like making up all kinds of advice that has no basis on reality. But what Vince is of course, is a face man for a very sophisticated marketing business where there may be a team of 20 or 30 copywriters all working in a group to actually create every message that Vince puts out. And there's a huge machine behind him that most people aren't aware of unless they're already in the industry.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many of these Ronald McDonald's, for want of a better word. You don't see him anymore, do you? Yeah, yeah. There's so many things where they're just front ends for marketing firms.
Yes. And in the same way that they have mascots or in the corporate world, like they have the lizard for Geico Insurance and other things that, and Mickey Mouse for Disney is like the classic one, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it can be a good idea as well, because then if you're the real brains behind something, it takes the focus off you. Because it's like with both of us, we're the genius, we're the brains behind our operation, and we're also the face. So if we go away, the business goes away.
The people I see who enjoy their business the most, that I know, are kind of faceless. Their business has no connection to them. You would never know from their products that it was them. They haven't stamped their own personality. They've just detached their ego from what they sell. And the product could be sold, the business could be sold to somebody else, to a different owner, and you would never know that anything had changed.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've been thinking about a bit, because this is all me. It's only me, and I think I don't think I could train somebody quickly up to do it. It'd be several years before I could slot somebody else in, which I think is kind of one advantage to kind of looking at sort of when you do start to look at coaching and teaching, because I think it's easier to systemize and get people teaching at a higher level than it is doing it at a higher level.
Yes, I mean, look, I've tried it at times when I've been busy or had clients, multiple clients that I've needed to deliver work for, hired other copywriters to help me with doing the fulfillment, and then I, QC the work, and it's never worked out. It's always just provided more stress than anything else. And I've gone and made this mistake 2 times or 3 times, and in the end, it's like, okay, you're not just worried about your own deadlines. Now you're worried about the other people you've hired for deadlines. And you know that with the best will in the world, they will never, whatever they deliver to you is going to be something that you have to go and deliver to a client. So you're never going to feel completely comfortable just giving it from hand to hand without having a good look through it yourself. And then in the end, you end up doing the job. You end up paying for the job and doing the job yourself most of the time.
That's it. Because even if they've done a great job, even if they've done a job that might be better than yours, when you look at it, it's still not you. It's not how you do it. So you feel the need to redo it. So like I said, I could get like a Stefan George or a David Deutsch to write it. And then I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'd have used that headline. Then, 2 days later, I've rewritten the entire piece.
Yes, I mean, this is a thing anyway. I think, well, many people have said this probably in different ways, but when I was doing some training with Alan Sultanic last year, or maybe a year and a half ago, he was talking about this specifically, about how creativity just can't scale. Like any business that does really, really well, they do have creativity. They have a creative idea or a creative product, but they don't actually scale the creativity part. You put the creativity into doing one thing, and then they make the money off distributing it more widely. So like, even in the case of everyday item like the iPhone, yes, a lot of creativity went into the making of the thing, but the real business is around basically the replication and distribution of that thing to millions of people all around the world. And I think the same applies across the board. Trying to grow a business on just doing creative work, creative agencies are very, very hard to do.
Yeah, there's no leverage in it at all. You can't do. No, like I said, you can't do anything with it really, can you? It's just you, and that's it.
Yes.
Whereas, if you can create a product, anything like this, or productize what you're doing, maybe then you can start to mass replicate it and become really successful.
Yes. Andrew, if people want to find out more about you, what's the best place to do it?
X or Twitter. That really is the only place I'm active. I've got a Facebook account, so I don't use it for business. And I've got a LinkedIn account, but every time I go on there, there's like 80 notifications, and I get scared and just close the browser. I know a lot of kind of these bigger creators have all this strategy and system set up, whereas I just thought I'd try Twitter one day, and I've never really stopped. I'm not got myself any more organized.
That's cool. I'm going to send people to your Twitter anyway in the video description. Yeah, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. I really appreciated it. And is there anything you'd like to just sort of say finally before we wrap up?
No, thank you for having me, John. It's been a great chat. I hope your viewers find it valuable. I know we've been off on all sorts of tangents, and they've got to hear some of my bad jokes, at least. I hope it amuses them. Oh, and yeah, I know we're in December now, aren't we? So I hope everyone has a great Christmas, whatever. And I think that's about it from me. Yes, thank you for hosting me. And thank you for watching.
Cheers, Andrew. I'm going to stop the recording now.